Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to jump right in and crack open a 2,300-year-old cold case. And not just any cold case, folks. We're talking about the medical mystery surrounding the demise of arguably history's greatest military commander. We're heading all the way back to 323 BC, right into the sweltering heart of Babylon, to look at a historical event that has literally puzzled scholars, doctors, and historians for centuries. We've all heard of Alexander the Great, right? The Conqueror, the absolute legend. But today, we're going to look at the science and the truly chilling sequence of events surrounding his final days.
So did the ancient world's greatest conqueror suffer a fate worse than death? You know, when we think of great historical figures meeting their end, we usually picture this glorious, chaotic final stand on a battlefield, or, I don't know, maybe a peaceful passing surrounded by loyal subjects. We expect finality, right? But what if the reality for Alexander wasn't finality at all? What if his end wasn't a peaceful rest, but rather a living, waking nightmare that he was entirely powerless to stop? I want you to keep that horrifying thought right in the back of your mind as we lay out the facts of his life and his incredibly sudden demise. To really grasp the sheer shock of his death, you kind of have to understand the absolute invincibility of his life. I mean, at just 20 years old, after his father was assassinated, Alexander assumes the throne of Macedonia. And he doesn't just hold on to power, he explodes across the globe. He conquers Persia, the Middle East, Asia, and get this, here's the truly staggering statistic. Across 11 years of nonstop military campaigning, he never lost a single major battle. 0 defeats, not one. Because of this totally unblemished record, he developed quite the god complex, even going so far as to name cities after himself and stamping his own face on the money. He truly believed, and, well, his followers believed too, that he was an untouchable divine being. But hey, no matter how strong or determined you are, biology eventually catches up with you, right? So it's 323 BC, right in the ancient city of Babylon, and this supposedly untouchable conqueror suddenly falls ill. Day 1 marks the onset of a mysterious fever. For 12 agonizing days, literally the most powerful man on the planet is bedridden, suffering through excruciating pain that his elite physicians just absolutely cannot cure. And then on day 12, the pain simply stops. At just 32 years of age, Alexander the Great is officially declared dead. But this is exactly where our timeline gets incredibly strange. Here is the crucial anomaly. 6 days. I want you to think about the sweltering, unforgiving heat of Babylon in the middle of summer. When a human being dies in that kind of extreme environment, biological decomposition begins almost immediately. It's just a harsh, undeniable fact of nature. Yet, according to historical records, Alexander's body sat out in that brutal heat for exactly 6 days and showed 0 signs of rotting. No decay whatsoever, no physical breakdown. To his followers, this was an impossible anomaly. It was an absolute defiance of nature that baffled every single person who witnessed it.
Now, as you might guess, we interpret this impossible anomaly very differently today than they did thousands of years ago. To the Macedonians and Greeks of 323 BC, this complete lack of decomposition was the ultimate proof of his divinity. They looked at his pristine body and concluded, wow, he really is a god. Divine beings don't rot. It completely cemented his legacy. But modern science? Well, modern science offers a bombshell theory that is way more chilling than any ancient myth. Medical experts, looking back at his symptoms today, suggest he wasn't divine at all. Actually, they think he was suffering from a catastrophic neurological disorder.
Let's break down exactly what modern scientists think happened here. It's called Guillain-Barré syndrome, or GBS. This is a rare disorder where the body's own immune system basically gets confused and starts attacking the nervous system. It usually begins with muscle weakness down in the extremities, and then it rapidly progresses inward until it causes complete, total bodily paralysis. But here is the absolutely terrifying part of Guillain-Barré syndrome. While the body is completely locked down and unable to move even a single muscle, the patient's brain, their mind, their consciousness remains 100% fully awake and aware. So let's look at how this historical misunderstanding likely played out. First, Alexander's immune system attacks his nerves, completely paralyzing him. Second, because he's paralyzed and not moving a muscle, his body's core metabolism and oxygen demands just plummet drastically. He simply doesn't need to take deep breaths anymore. And third, his breathing becomes incredibly shallow. Now, I need to provide a quick historical disclaimer here. Ancient doctors obviously didn't have stethoscopes. They didn't even routinely check for a pulse on the wrist. Their primary way of verifying death was checking for breath, usually by holding a feather near the mouth.
Because Alexander's breathing was so shallow, it was completely undetectable to his medics. They checked for breath, found none, and tragically, mistakenly, declared him dead. Our source material uses an analogy that I think perfectly captures this horrific reality. They call it worse than a sleep paralysis demon. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night, your mind fully alert, but your body just refusing to move? It's terrifying, even for just a few seconds. Now multiply that sheer panic over 6 entire days. Alexander the Great, the man who conquered the known world, was locked inside his own body. He wasn't decomposing during those 6 days because he wasn't dead. He was completely conscious, entirely aware of his surroundings, literally listening to his generals mourn him, listening to the priests prepare his body, and completely powerless to blink an eye or twitch a finger to tell them he was still alive.
So what does this all mean? If his mind was awake while the dirt fell, did Alexander's final battle take place entirely inside his own head? It just completely reframes how we view one of history's most legendary figures, doesn't it? We don't usually picture the great conqueror being buried alive, fighting a silent, invisible war of sheer terror inside his own paralyzed mind, screaming without a voice. It takes a historical footnote of a seemingly peaceful death and turns it into a totally visceral, relatable medical terror. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the most fascinating mysteries in history aren't found out on the battlefield, but right within the fragile biology of the human body. Think about that the next time you read about the glorious end of an ancient king. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning the history you think you know.